This load is really hot, needs picked up immediately. How often do you see this in a customer or prospect email? Pretty often, right? Let me ask you this. Do you do anything different with loads that are urgent? Do you charge the same? Is it the same amount of work? Don't worry, because in this video, we'll cover how to determine if it's really a hot load or if your customer is just trying to get you to hustle for free. I'm Benjamin Kowalski with Freight 360, where we provide the latest transportation sales tips and training videos to help you reach your goals faster. Let's start by defining what a hot load or shipment is. It is a shipment that needs to be loaded urgently, that day or possibly in the next few hours, because it's either creating issues for the shipper or because the receiver is in desperate need of the cargo because it's been delayed. There are a lot of causes for hot shipments, but at the end of the day, the thing that really matters most is that it gets picked up without fail. No ifs, ands, or buts. So let's start with the questions you should be asking your customer or prospect at the beginning of the process. Once you receive an email that states a load is hot and must pick up, the first thing you should do is pick up the phone and give them a call. For one, it's an opportunity to build more rapport even if you don't move the load. Second, you'll need to ask some questions to determine the context of the load or the situation that your customer or prospect is actually dealing with at the moment. So here's some of the way these questions should go. Hey Cindy, just received your email about the hot load from Miami to Boston. Just had a couple quick questions. What's your target rate on this move? Or your ballpark on what you've been paying for this lane over the past few weeks? The reason I ask is I just wanted to get my arms around this shipment for you. We can definitely get you a truck today. We just need to know how urgent your customer needs it. Are you looking for team drivers to run this straight through? It might be a little more money, but if your customer really needs this, we can get it there in about half the transit time. Now pause for a second. Why do you think I'm offering to get it there in half the transit time for a little more money, even if they haven't requested a team driver? The reason I'm asking about the most extreme solution to this issue they're saying they have is that it allows me to get more information from Cindy about this load, or my shipper, right? I'm going to learn a lot just by how she responds to these questions. You're typically going to hear one of a few things. First, they might say, "Oh no, Ben, it's not that urgent. We just need to make sure that it delivers as scheduled." Or you may hear, "Hey, that's great. This customer was supposed to receive this a few days ago and we haven't been able to get a truck to pick it up yet." And again, what I'm really listening for is how urgent really is this shipment, right? For instance, if the market for this lane right now is, and I looked this up yesterday, $2,900 to $3,500, right? That's a pretty big range. The load boards are also showing loads posted as high as $4,000 right now for this same lane. The degree of urgency of the shipment is directly related to the amount the shipper is going to be willing to pay you to work on this. For instance, if the load has to pick up in the next 2 hours, I'm going to need to pay close to the top of the market, right, to make sure that it gets picked up on time. I'm probably going to be paying close to that $4,000 I saw on the high on the load board, or maybe a bit more, to make sure that it gets loaded within the next few hours. The other reason you'll be on the higher end of the market is to ensure that the carrier you've booked doesn't drop your load for a better paying load. And finally, obviously the less time you have to work on a load or a shipment, the less trucks that will actually be empty and within a close enough radius from your shipper to make that pickup window. A good rule of thumb here is 50 miles for every hour you have. So if you've got 3 hours to get a truck in there, you can book a truck that is usually empty within 150 miles. If it's 2 hours, it would be 100 miles, and so on, right? Okay, now back to Cindy. If she says that this load is important, but not important enough to pay above the bottom of the market, we'll say she's only willing to pay $3,200 for this. Even though it's the same thing they always pay for this lane, what is this really telling you, right? It tells you that, yeah, the load might be a little more important than normal, but not important enough for your customer or prospect to care enough to put their money where their mouth is, right? These are the situations where I'll post the load up and field inbound calls, but I'm not really going to make any outbound calls. Why? Because I'm not going to burn the most precious resource I have every day, time, if my customer isn't willing to pay for my time to use it, right? Now, if it turns out to be really urgent, then I'm going to quote her, we'll say 15 to 20% above what I think I'm going to pay. In this case, I'd bill about $46.75, we'll say. I would post the load up for $4,000 at first and see if I receive any hits from trucks. And then every 5 to 10 minutes, I'll up my post maybe by $100 until I've covered that load. Now, if I'm still not getting any hits, then I'll start making some outbound calls to trucks posted within that radius that we just discussed. And that's it. Remember, the questions you ask will determine whether or not it's a hot load at all. It is very common for shippers to use recently onboarded brokers or prospecting brokers as free resources, right? They'll send over lanes for quotes that they don't even have shipments for yet. And why do they do this? Because they don't want to waste the time of the brokers they've been working with for years, unless it's actually a shipment that needs to go. So when they've got lots of brokers emailing them about wanting to do business with them and wanting to be onboarded, they're going to use that to their advantage. So a key takeaway is that you shouldn't ever be hustling to cover a hot load until you've verified that it is actually an urgent shipment and that they are willing, your shipper or your prospect, to pay what it would cost to have it treated as an actual priority. One without the other isn't going to do you any good. For more tips and training, be sure to watch our weekly podcast and our channel. Check out the description for links to group and private coaching. Because remember, whether you believe you can or believe you can't, you're right.